think we're going. So again, Matthew, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. Again, I really enjoyed Death Valley. It's like this splatter punk, gore fest, fun horror, ride, something that I think Wes Craven would be very proud of. What was the inspiration for it? Where did Death Valley come from?
Oh man, Death Valley came from so many places, and a lot of people have already picked up a lot of the vibes. So, from a movie inspiration, there's a lot of video games, there's a lot of movies that are tied in there, and
Yeah,
things that just growing up that I just loved. So, um, thing I love is actually listening to people say, "Oh, that's like from The Thing, or that's from Alien, or that's from Resident Evil," and there's so many of those references and feels in there, and kind of like tried to borrow within reason of what I can do, like
yeah,
with the resources that I have. I'm like, how can I borrow some of my favorite moments from some of my favorite movies? So you will have, like I said before, The Thing, Alien, Resident Evil, even Terminator 2 is in there for some of it. And then from video game titles, like there's Halo, there's Gears of War, again Resident Evil,
yeah.
and then a modern day, I put a little bit of Bad Boys in there. I really like the banter of Bad Boys and tried to like throw in two characters that have that kind of vibe into it. So yeah, there's a lot of inspiration from my 80s and 90s childhood of just, movies that I watched and grew up on. And
I mean, I've got to ask. Obviously, your brother's in the film, as the main character. How fun was it just putting him through the ringer? Because he sort of gets the hell kicked out of
honestly,
him.
I love it. I love working with him. One of my favorite things is we can just talk to each other as brothers, which just means we just get stuff done. Like
Yeah,
I like everybody else is like, Matt's so nice until it gets to Jeremy. If it's Jeremy, it's just like, hey, get your shit together. And everyone's else like, oh yeah, you're doing such a good job. And like,
yeah,
but I like Jeremy is so amazing to work with. We built all the sets. The whole movie, outside of the exterior scenes, is basically filmed in his garage. So he not only helped me build the sets, he's there writing it with me. And then from the point of view of the stuff that we put him through, like we threw him through walls, we threw him into a raging river. Like that river scene wasn't originally in the movie, and we
okay,
had this huge flood come, and I'm like,
yeah,
"Hey, Jeremy, what's your thoughts going out into that raging river?"
yeah,
And he's just like, sure. And we wrote that into the movie
yeah,
afterwards because a lot of this movie was just borrowing and taking what we could. And I remember just filling him up with foam pieces so that, like, hopefully he would float and putting
yeah,
a rope on him and he would swim right into this. Like, if you look, the rapids are huge. Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
literally like there's other movies that are done that follow a similar premise to this film,
yeah,
but so much of it's done CG and some of it is just the effects, in my opinion, fall apart. Whereas what I loved about working with Jeremy is that he just does everything. It's just
yeah,
like you are going to run through these explosions, you're going to jump into this river, you are going to jump off this cliff, you're going to get thrown across the room,
yeah,
and he's there's no stunt, it's him doing it, and
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
that's what I love about it. So I get to beat up on my little brother, and I hope I can keep doing that because
Nice.
it's therapeutic. So
Very, very cool. Yeah, no, you did put him through the ringer. The bit for me was when he first encounters, the monster, and just sort of, just clawing him, and yeah, it was. But yeah, no,
yeah.
good job, man. Keep it up. Obviously, I mean, you're a good-looking dude. Why the monster? Why do you want to, why are you always jumping into the prosthetics?
Oh, it's that or like dad roles. Like I guess that's kind of like
Yeah,
the swing. Like I can
yeah,
do Hallmark movies or I can do monster movies. And
no, no,
I like
monster. I
monster
think,
movies. There's
yeah,
something like
um,
I've always dressed up like having these guys in my room.
yeah,
Like he's a cool dude. Like you get to be something else.
yeah.
He's my gaming buddy, as you can tell. But like that's PG. Sorry, let me grab the
Yeah,
other one. Like they're
yeah, yeah,
just, I don't know. Like people ask why monster movies. I think there's so much fun. I think you get to, like, I think there's a little monster inside of all of us. So the fact that you get to like bring it out and play with it, and like everyone wants to be scary. I love scaring people. Halloween's
yeah,
like one of my favorite times, and I'm the weird dad in the neighborhood that actually dresses up for Halloween and scares people, whereas like other fathers are like, Mario, Luigi.
Yeah.
I'm literally a zombie trying to scare children and adults. And I don't know. I've always
No.
been drawn to like monsters, dark stuff, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, anything like that. It was just that's just
Yeah.
cool. That's fun. So
No, very cool.
yeah.
And I mean, obviously the film, and what I really liked about it was it really kicks off with an adrenaline rush. Like you throw the audience right in there. I wasn't expecting that. I'm like, oh, it's going to be a first act and it'll build up. It's like, no, you're right in there from the moment, and you're like, what the hell's going on? I mean, was that an intentional choice? Like, did you really want to throw your audience in just?
Yeah. I think every movie I do is a response to the last movie I did. So, and like I say that, like for me, it's just like I'm growing as a filmmaker. I'm learning how to tell a story. Like I live in Mennonite country. Like there's horse and buggies that go right down my street. So it's not like I'm in a film industry area. And for
Yeah,
me, it's every movie is my school, if that makes sense. So Transference was convoluted, confusing. It had its own product, like we had actors quit or whatever partway through, and
yeah,
people didn't track with it. That was my last movie. People just didn't get it. And I was like, I need to make a very simple movie that's not boring, that just moves quickly, that's two guys who get along but are like an old married couple, but in a good way.
yeah,
And I just want it to chug. I just want it to go. I don't want it to be boring.
yeah,
So like Extraction Day, which was my first film, it had like this lull in the middle. And again, for me, this is all just learning, building, trying to get better. And like the middle was just boring. I'm like, okay. And the beginning was like boring. So I'm like, how can I kickstart it fast, get people engaged, hook them, but not make one location movie? Like so many people during the pandemic were like, we're just going to do a one location movie. I'm like, I want to make something that feels big, that feels like that you're going, that you're traveling, that you're moving.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
even though we built all the locations in one location, which is the funny
Right.
part,
Yeah.
it feels like a big
Okay.
movie. It feels like there's a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
that's going on. So I'm really proud of it from a filmmaker because like we didn't have a big crew. It was like just my brother building sets with me, and my wife's producing it, and then afterwards a lot of people came on once we got the movie off the ground. But we made something just it was a group of friends who came together who hauled ass and we made something that was really cool. And I'm totally going off of what your question was the beginning supposed to be? Yeah, the beginning was supposed to hook you. I like good
Yeah,
beginnings.
yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
like slow burns. So
No, but I think as but no, I think as you said, you did talk about that being like, you just throw the audience in and it just, goes for it. And I think you really had that there.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah. Cool. And so look, obviously the monster, that's a very how would I say, it's a very interesting design. It's a different design. Did you want to do something different? I mean, the monster's like half its face is like sort of burned off. I haven't. I've watched a lot of monster movies. I've watched a lot of like vampire films and stuff. I've never seen a monster quite like this, and it's sort of got an auditory kind of sense kind of thing to it. Was that intentional? Did you want to do something that looked completely different
Yeah,
and frightening and just
like
really different?
I think like obviously I wanted something that just didn't feel. I didn't want to steal. And and the big thing for me was the a lot of the inspiration for this came from I don't know the Book of Enoch. It's referenced a couple times in the movie, and in the Book of Enoch, it talks about how man was made in the image of God. And I was just like, okay, so the image of God, da da da. Well, what's not an image? So like, let's start stripping parts of a man away. Like, what happens when you take away the nose? What happens when you take away the eyes? What happens when you take away the ears? And I'm like, the most frightening part is like that mouth. I'm like, we're just gonna keep a mouth. And so I
Yeah,
went to Steve. I'm like, I just want a big mouth. Like I want there's the Planet of the Apes, Tim Burton's when the ape there's a scene where I forget what the actor is and he just roars and his mouth is just so big. I'm like that. Like I just want a
yeah,
big freaking mouth that's just menacing. And that's kind of how um we broke down the monster. And then with that, I'm like, Steve, just make me something. And so he started showing me a couple pictures. I'm like, yes. Every time it was just like, yes, 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 keep going, yes. And it's really cool how he designed the monster because the teeth
yeah,
actually sit on the chin. So
yeah.
when you open it, you get so much bigger than what's naturally possible. And then it's actually
Okay.
cool because then my teeth are
Yeah,
underneath it. So they darkened
yeah,
this so that it looked like it was double teeth. And sometimes you see that in some of
Yeah.
the footage and sometimes. So I was very happy with the face of the monster. I was like, this is what I wanted. So yeah.
No, very and did you portray, because there are there are different versions of the monster, let's say, like different transformations. Did you portray every version of the monster, or was it, because there's like the lead monster and then there are the transformational sort of, guys who are undergoing their transformations?
Yeah, yeah. So, our makeup artist Chloe, who's fantastic, she came out for those days. So, like the morgue scene and the guy in the hospital bed and those
Yeah.
characters, we just talked back and forth. And I'm like, I wanted, like, if you look at the monster itself, it has like a very interesting, like, it has like a kind of feels like a burn texture like on it. So I'm like, can we duplicate that? So that's what the inspiration was, is that these guys were
Yeah.
getting layered on this burn thing. And it took a couple hours for them to do. It actually sometimes took longer to get the non-monster, the transition, like the transitioning monsters
Yeah.
took
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes more time than actually getting me into the suit. But I think
Right.
I think the scares from them were great, and some really good moments came from that. So
I think the morgue scene, when he's like in the morgue and like there's the thin, the one of the experiments wakes up like that, because
yeah,
I was like, oh, it's going to happen the way you shot it and the way you edited it, because you let it pause and you just let it tick and then it just snapped. You're like, oh, what the hell's going on?
yeah. I again,
I
morgue
love that
scenes.
scene. That was great.
Yeah, the morgue scene was
Yeah,
a favorite to film. Like
it just sort
I
of
love when
go
we
for
just
it.
get caught into like small spaces.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a lot of fun to film.
No, very cool. And of course, obviously, there's a twist act, which again I didn't see coming. The way you set it up and with that certain character of the twist when it's revealed, I was like, oh, so was that again intentional, like casting of that character? And I'm sure I don't want to give anything away because it's quite a pivotal thing, but in the casting of that actor, was that sort of established so that you could twist it that way and sort of keep audiences on edge?
Yeah, that was a conversation that we had very early on, and just um, trying to go back and forth of how to build. How do you talk about this without giving anything away? How to build that character that way.
Yeah.
I'm very happy. I'm very happy with how it turned out. I'm very happy
Uh,
with the performance and the juxtaposition between the two characters, and that's a character that if I could go into, like if I made a prequel, I would love to explore that character more and go more into that, because I think there's a lot of things that were touched on but not really fulfilled. So a lot of open doorways to walk through.
Yeah. And talking, you mentioned prequel, and I think, it's set up that I definitely could see this as kind of a franchise kind of thing, with the ending, which I won't go into. But again, I think the way you ended it, the way you ended it is how I wanted it to end, but I didn't expect you to end it that way. I was expecting it to sort of all go to hell and let's just say the doors open, but you ended in a different way, which I didn't expect. But do you want to continue this with Shudder? Is this something you want to keep going? Like, do you think there's
It,
room to keep telling the
I
story?
I have I have a prequel and I have a sequel, right? A rock and roll.
Nice.
I would love to. Again, we just started touching on some of the things that we want to go into. I love the way the movie ends, and I love where the characters go.
Yeah,
And I would love to explore that more and have fun with it. Again, like we did this during a pandemic where you're not allowed to have, like, we were just very limited with what we were
yeah,
able to do, which makes it unique in its own way.
yeah,
But I would love to be able to just go full out and start putting in a lot of things that we weren't able to do in this one. And I'd be excited where we can take the story, because there's a lot of fun. Yeah, there's a lot of fun that you can
yeah,
still have with it. So, and I would love for this to build into a franchise. Like I said, I'm like, you know what?
yeah,
This is like our Pitch Black from the Riddick series, and I feel like we could do this, and then it just opens up how much bigger could the world get. So, but it
yeah,
comes down to if people like it, and if it resounds with people. So I really hope people enjoy the film. Like I want to make something that people could just sit back enjoy, and just
Yeah.
and we'll see
No,
how that
cool.
goes. So
And look, I think we're just about out of time. But in terms of obviously you're working with Shudder, and you're doing that, and obviously you're firmly rooted in the like sci-fi horror genre. But would you ever want to try something different, like say, I mean, like rom-com, like kind of thing? Like, would you ever want to do like a monster rom-com or something like that? Or
I have a monster rom-com that I have outlined, and I'm gonna end up pitching it to Shudder. If they like it, we'll see what happens. I think there's so much you can do with a monster suit, and so much fun you can have, and again, like just so much fun. There's so much
yeah,
you can do. So yeah, after this is done, I'm hoping to sit down with Shudder, and I'm hoping we could just have a little brainstorming session and like get a bunch of movies going and just
nice.
have fun. So yeah.
Build out the franchise there. No, no, very cool. Well, again, look, Matthew, I just want to say, thank you very much for sitting down with me discussing Death Valley. Again, it's just this really cool throwback, like 80s, 90s, horror zombie gore fest kind of ride. It's really fun, and again, I wish you a lot of success because I would love to see this continue. And so thank you very much. So I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Samuel. Really appreciate it
Awesome.
too. Thank you so much.
Cool. That's about. I appreciate it.
Lockdown begins. 3, 2, 1.
8 hours ago, San Miesa Institute received a distress call from one of their compounds. Alpha, entered the facility, starting our search.
Looks like they found something in the ice. Dr. Chloe?
They're coming.
What is this thing?
The longer we stay here, the more dangerous it is for you.
Incoming!